and welcome back to another episode with Fight Night Picks. As always, we're brought to you by SimBody. Vertiball is now SimBody. If you head on over to their website, simbody.com, you're going to get all the great products that you know and love, including the SimBody Vertiroller and the Vertiball that you have seen most likely here in studio. Look at that. Place it, lock it, attach it, Vertiball, all sorts of great stuff over there if you want to roll out those old tired muscles and you don't want to go with that old lacrosse ball. They're also coming out with that very new product that you can see right in front of you. And if I head on over to my cart, look at that. I've already got a Vertiball over there. Little bit of a deal right there. And if you hit the try for 60 days risk-free, use the promo code FNP and you're going to get 10% off your order. With that code FNP at simbody.com, you're really helping out another local company here in New Brunswick, Canada. Can't wait for it. The new name, SimBody at simbody.com. And as we always say, let's get into it.
A last look at the big card. Be sure to head into the chat and have your say. Let's get into it and join in Fight Night Picks ? Kicks.
Just like that, I am back. But listen, I think I'm just going to have all kinds of video issues, and that's going to be the way that it is. And yeah, I guess that's what happens when you're traveling circus, and things go where they go. So ultimately, again, Poirier taking on Gaethje, ? Kicks all over the place. As always, one half your hosting duo at Craig Allen FNP. And if you do think about it and you look at a card like this, I mean, Poirier taking on Gaethje, you got that BMF belt on the line up at the top, but you have some really interesting prelims as well. And we kind of touched on it in the iteration that didn't make it. You have Thompson, you have Michel Pereira, missing weight, 174. Thompson doesn't want to take the risk, and it really is tough, especially when you look at a guy, you know, that's 40. He's already had his 2 title shots, the majority draw, the split fight. It was a really close bit of action when he was taking on Tyron Woodley, and now ultimately he's had to build himself back up. And the last time he took on an opponent that missed weight, it was, of course, Darren Till, and he loses split decision in that one. So a really tough one there. Cameron Lyle saying don't blame him. I don't blame him either. So it is unfortunate that you lose that fight. But I'm going to rip through all of these ones. We can send you on your merry way. I've got the touchdown Atlantic game today. Your Saskatchewan Roughriders taking on the Toronto Argonauts, the defending Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, and they're having a heck of a season. So if we kick off, first fight on the card, Maverick taking on Cachoeira. Cachoeira makes the weight. You love to see it. Miranda Maverick does as well. A lot of people, again, as I was saying, Maverick, you know, not necessarily training at elevation for this one. Training out of Marathon MMA in Kansas City, or in and around Kansas City. That is, of course, Trey Ogden's gym. Training there with Garrett Armfield as well. And then the Goat Shed with Jillian Robertson, a former foe of both these women. Maverick beat Robertson. Cachoeira lost to Robertson. So I do have Miranda Maverick in this one. Matthew Moore is hanging out. Stuff happens on vacation. Yeah, that's true. Bardock saying Dustin downplaying the altitude. It'll be interesting to see how the altitude makes out for everybody. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Joe's enjoying the show. Much appreciated. You toss a like, I would appreciate that as well. So, having Maverick in this one. Semelsberger's taking on Uros Medici, who look great at 170 pounds yesterday. You love to see it. Some people were critical of the fact that I thought that Medici could win this fight. Yeah, reason being is because Uros Medici can dictate distance with his kicks in a lot of his fights. He didn't necessarily do it when he was on the regional scene. He mixed it up a little bit more with his grappling, which I don't necessarily see against a guy like Matthew Semelsberger. Semelsberger's one of those guys. It's going to be the jab to set up the right cross or the overhand right. You saw him catching Jake Matthews, again, whether it was that right cross or the right hook. 1, 2, 3 times in round 1, 2, and 3. So pretty cool to see out of Semelsberger there in that fight. But Semelsberger's had some really interesting ones. The Jeremiah Wells fight where you drop a guy twice, but you still don't beat him. That stuff doesn't happen very often. Millionaire, 0.5 is missing weight. Michelle was nowhere near. That one is true. Jeremy Stutz is tuning in. CTP 1982. What's up? What is up? What's going on? Hopefully you're enjoying your Saturday morning. But Semelsberger taking on Medici. I still have Semelsberger. Obviously, Medici has been a long time away for a long time with that hand injury. We'll see how that plays out in this one. A couple guys with hand injuries. Obviously, Uros Medici with a long layoff, but as well Kevin Holland, who kicks off the main card coming up today. Jake Matthews taking on Darius Flowers. Still have Matthews in this matchup. Great to see both these guys. And finally, the debut for Darius Flowers, who came in on Contender Series last year, picked up the giant upset win over Amiran Gogoladze. So a good one there for him. It was a crazy slam, and he obviously won favorite Dana White, telling him to get out there and watching that fight. Right answer. What's up from Nova Scotia? Much love. Keep up the good work. What's up to you? I'm going to be down in Halifax, the old Husky Stadium, watching the Rough Riders and those Argos later on today. But going with Matthews in the matchup, not switching anything up right there. Lonnie Lozano, where's the other half? He's on vacation. Roman Kopylov taking on Claudio Ribeiro. In this one, I don't love it, but I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov in the fight. And the reason why I don't, it's those short, straight shots of a guy like Coppola versus the big winging actions of a guy like Claudio Ribeiro. To me, again, how does elevation play into it? You probably take the guy who's a little bit more technical and compact over the guy that likes to just expend all of his energy really, really early. So for me, I do have Roman Coppola, but I'd be interested to see what the fans are thinking on this one because I didn't hear a ton out of everybody. Cole P, only guy off last season from Contender Series. That I seriously enjoyed watching. Yeah, Contender Series was a lot of fun last year, and I'm glad we had the chance to do that show because, yeah, I know Matt and I had a lot of fun doing that one. So both of us in this one with Kopylov, nothing changing there. Vergara taking on Vinicius Salvador. This is the reason why I wanted to do this show. I'm switching the pick. I'm going to CJ Vergara in the fight. If you do consider this one, I mean, Vinicius Salvador, 128.5. He looked completely drawn out. Now, Vergara, and I saw it mentioned out there on Twitter today by Dan Tom, MMA Junkie's own. If you look at it for a guy like Vergara, he struggled against southpaws. I mean, he has a loss to Jonathan Martinez on the regional scene. He has a loss in the UFC to a southpaw. But when you look at a guy like Vergara, he does everything quite well. And I know if you just go by UFC stats, not really the greatest with his wrestling in the UFC, but you really do look at his entirety of his game. He struggled there. He was on skates. I counted 4 knockdowns in his last fight against Daniel Lacerda da Silva. He ends up coming back. He gets the win in that one. So, yeah, Mark Crowley, get the likes up. Enjoys the content. Thank you, Mark Crowley. But, yeah, when I look at this one, I mean, Salvador misses the weight. He's the bigger guy at 125 pounds. But coming in at 128.5 and looking that bad, yeah, I do have some trouble taking Vinicius Salvador now at the end of the week, having missed the weight. You get to hear the tondeuse in the background. Somebody's just mowing their lawn, having a good time. All right, Bonfim's taking on Trevin Giles. Still going with Gabriel Bonfim in the matchup, but this is one of those fights that gets you set up. It gets you excited. You're looking forward to that main card. Bonfim taking on Giles. And Giles is one of those guys. He's slippery. He's tricky. He's got good submission defense. You go back and you watch his fights, certain ones of them where he's winning until he loses. I reference the one all the darn time where he's taking on Zach Cummings. He beats him for the first 2 rounds. 3rd round, he gets up, and as he's getting up, he gets caught in a submission. So you hate to see that for him. But with a guy like Gabriel Bonfim, the other thing, he keeps his hands really wide and straight shots get through. And Trevin Giles is one of those guys that takes a lot of straight shots in his fight. He's got a really good jab. He's got a really good cross. So you got to watch out for those with Trevin Giles. He can get ahead on some of those numbers, whereas Bonfim, as good as it is to have a boxing background like he does, he's got that shiny 14-0 record, primarily winning by submission. But for me, I still like Bonfim in this fight. I think it's going to be a good one while it lasts. Then we get on to our main card, and we're just ripping through these ones. Giancarlo Schmidt, no worries about CJ's chin. Yeah, of course I worry about CJ Vergara's chin. I mean, why do you think I picked Vinicius Salvador at the start of the week? But I just consider the fight a wash, if you will. I don't like it when, a guy had chin issues not that long ago. I guess it was, late last year when he took on Daniel Lacerda. But for Vinicius Salvador to come in at 128.5, and then you couple in the fact that this one's at elevation, that's a tough one for both guys in that fight. Case is taking on Holland. Holland looked interesting against Santiago Ponzinibbio his last time, who now has a fight booked against Dana Rodriguez. That's a lot of fun. But for Kevin Holland, I mean, you think about it. Barely even threw that right hand. He threw the right cross at the end that sent Ponzinibbio back, and then he landed the left hook, and that's the end of the fight. So a good ending the last time out for Kevin Holland, but you got to think about how he got to that ending. And for Michael Chiesa, we haven't seen him in a very long time. Obviously, his last time out, controlled by Sean Brady, looked good on the scales. He was one of the biggest guys at 155 pounds when he was in that division. And so for Chiesa, I mean, you look at some of these fights, and I think we did a decent job of talking about it at the start of the week, but I feel like I didn't spend enough time on it. He's one of those guys with such a good grappler out of Sick Jitsu, Pacific Northwest, and you watch the progression of his skills and the progression of his career. Look at his fight against RDA. He's kind of like striking in there, getting in the inside, and then controlling a lot of the grappling against one of the better grapplers that you've seen at 155 pounds. And I mean, even consider what RDA did to Robbie Lawler in Winnipeg back in like 2018, that main event. It was a lot of RDA grappling. You know how good RDA is in that respect. Both those guys 55ers up at 170, so an interesting one there. Right answer YT saying Darrius when Chiesa panic shoots. Holland by submission. That'd be kind of wild to see a Kevin Holland submission. Not a ton tuned in on an early Saturday morning, but toss a like. It'd be much appreciated. The vacation shows, they continue, and we'll see what happens for that Sandhagen font card. I'm thinking about trying something a little bit different, and I might just do a little bit of a StreamYard thing. But, yeah, I think this is going to be a good fight. Giancarlo Schmidt saying, I'm worried that Holland wants to prove his ground game in the fight. You'd hate to see that, and obviously we saw Holland struggles against some of the better grapplers at 185 pounds against, obviously, Derek Brunson when Holland was ranked 10th in the middleweight division. That was a big-time struggle, and Chiesa, again, one of those guys getting in there, getting it done, and then it's all over. Branch above, what's good, Craig? I like Holland in this one. I'm still going to go with Holland. I just wonder how that that right hand, has continued to progress for him, because watching some of those clips, you see Holland on his Instagram hitting pads with Eric Nixick, and I touched on that at the start of the week. Like, he's throwing a lot of the jab, he's throwing to the body, he throws an uppercut, maybe a right cross, but he's not using his right hand very much, so be interested to see how that one progresses. Now we get into the fight that is super polarizing, and if I can kind of break the fourth wall sitting on a deck, hanging out on a little bit of a long weekend retreat here, getting ready for a football game, yeah, I want to win. And people, they get really upset. They say, you guys split picks when they're really close fights and yada yada. And the funny thing was, we split the pick in the main event. And then right at the end of it, as I'm hiccuping on hot sauce after 10 p.m., the old ghost pepper sauce, I said, people hate this, but like, we don't consult with each other. We don't watch fight tape together. So it genuinely is a surprise when I have a different pick than Matt or vice versa. But on this one, you know, it really cut to the core. And of a year where you have hundreds and hundreds of fights, if I get this one wrong, it's not going to hurt my feelings all that much. But to back up the pick of this one, with Tony Ferguson, I mean, it's the complete skill set. Obviously, the damage is taking its toll. Maybe you wouldn't say, well, the chin's taking its toll. Both these guys have negative knockdown rates, actually, in the UFC. For Tony Ferguson, 3 knockdowns given to 5 received. For Bobby Green, 3 knockdowns given to 4 received. We obviously saw Green not that long ago struggle against Drew Dober in a fight that he was doing really well in until he got dropped. So a tough one there. Groggy, you get it. What football game? The old CFL game. I actually went to a Rough Riders game. When was it? Earlier on this month. Out in Experience, Regina. Got to see the Rough Riders beat the Elks on a Rouge. It ended on a Rouge. And if you're not a CFL fan, maybe check out what a Rouge is, because that's kind of crazy right there. Ryan Whitaker saying, I'm struggling to imagine anything other than a Bobby decision. And I get that. Both these guys have incredible output for this lightweight division. Obviously, Tony had the pit stop his last time out at 170 pounds, but you consider it. Numbers on a page, and I know they always lie, but for Tony Ferguson, 5.07 significant strikes per minute to 3.95 is the average throughout his UFC career. For Bobby Green, 5.97 to 3.67. So Green receives a little bit less damage, and he gives a little bit more out there. And if you really like Bobby Green by decision, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I'm going to stick with it. You know, I feel like I've continued to pick Tony Ferguson long past the point of where I should, but here I am doing it again on a Saturday morning on the deck with a cup of coffee. So, Tony by TKO is what Joe was saying. But yeah, Ryan Whitaker's not on it, and I definitely get that. Eldar saying Green all day. Tony Ferguson's a very, very big underdog in this one, and rightfully so. He's on a 5-fight losing streak against some of the best guys that are out there, but it really is tough. Teabagging time. I like when you guys are split on the picks. These are the fights you guys provide the most information on who you why you each think so-and-so is going to win. Yeah, there are a lot of people that just watch our videos. They go to the end and they don't give a gosh darn what we have to say. So it's always fun to see those comments out there week in, week out. All right, we move into a fight that was supposed to be on the prelims. Now it's on the main card. The Black Beast, Derrick Lewis, taking on Marcos Rogerio de Lima. And when you look at this fight, I said kind of in jest, I think it was funny because de Lima, he's currently unranked. He's on a nice win streak. He's looked really, really good going back to the Ben Rothwell fight and before. His last fight, a little bit of a stinker. Didn't look all that good. I didn't put my watch on, but he slowed down the time against Blachowicz, Ivanov. And so Ivanov let go by the UFC in the last week. And so Marcos Rogerio de Lima gets to take his spot. Now he's ranked 15th. Brandor, get your popcorn and blue slushies ready. MFer. CTP saying Lewis finally healthy. Looks good weight-wise. Lewis with the abs. Guys, I touched on this at the start of the week. I touched on this on my Twitter. Or is it X? @CraigAllen FNP this week. And I said, where have I seen the whole Derrick Lewis weigh-in thing before? Now, 263.5. He was 265 his last time out. He touched on it this week at the media days. He said, he was really, really struggling with that last weight cut. And we've seen him with a lot of finished losses lately. But yeah, you guys remember what happened before his last fight. 265, but all the pictures and the videos going into that, he looked like he had abs. He looked like he was, trim and he was going to move down to light heavyweight. And then he struggled with the weight and he didn't look all that great. So for me, yeah, it's awesome to see him 263.5. De Lima in that 210er weight, as Matt said at the start of the week. I still have De Lima in this fight. I think the leg kicks are big for him. It obviously scares you when a guy that big decides to throw the leg kick and just completely abandon a striking defense. But yeah, for me, I'm going to go with Marcos Rogerio de Lima, and I think he can get it done in the matchup. But I know we're split on this one at the start of the week. And it's a big-time fight that now has to fill the role of Thompson versus Pereira. And I'm sure a lot of people are pretty upset about that one. That, listen, you're forking over your hard-earned money for a fight on the main card of a giant pay-per-view. And now we get Derrick Lewis and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. But if you consider it, Lewis, a couple of title fights that he was unsuccessful in, the one against DC, the one that he had against a tricky Cyril Gane in that fight where Gane looked like he was absolutely on fire. We'll see how this one goes. In the comments, CTP 1982, I see another Blades uppercut. Derrick Lewis at altitude, Bartholomew of Haywood. I think both these guys at altitude. Altitude does funny things, and especially when you're heavyweights like this. Both guys training relative sea level. De Lima, South Florida, Lewis, Houston. Doesn't get more sea level than that. All right, Jan Blachowicz taking on Alex Pereira. Alex, the former light heavyweight champ over with Glory. I showed the picture, the video, or the couple pictures on the full card video for this one. Jan Blachowicz, the former light heavyweight champ in the UFC, and it seems like a lot of people are really split down the middle on this fight, and how could you not be? For Jan Blachowicz, he can get it done with the grappling, he can get it done with the striking, but he's not to the same level of a striker as Alex Pereira, and Blachowicz can check leg kicks. It's not like he's Johnny Parsons. Alex Pereira is one of those guys. He's going to check your leg kicks. He's going to feed you one back. He's going to rip the hooks to the body. He's going to rip the hooks up top. He's one of the most powerful strikers that we've seen in a very, very long time. History of kindness is loving the slick hair, and it is what it is. But when you consider a fight like this, a couple guys later on in their career, and somebody was critical on the fact, like, if we said that Alex Pereira was 38, that might have been a mistake. He's certainly 36. Blachowicz up there at 40, came into his own late in his career, started off, 2-4 in the UFC, and then he just moved that one forward. So 2-4 since he came into the UFC, 10-2-1 for Blachowicz since then. But yeah, both these guys, a great opportunity to set themselves up for the title at 205 pounds, and it really sucks because Jan Blachowicz had a close fight against Magomed Ankalaev, had a great fight at UFC 282. The boss was down on it. And off of that one, that was supposed to be the real deal, real McCoy. Like, we're going to set these guys up for the title. And then they pull the rug out from under them. It's a draw, and Teixeira Hill is for the title. And you know how that one ended up. Jamal Hill with the injury. Now the title's vacant. So, be interesting to see how this one plays out. But I'm going with Jan Blachowicz in this one. And then we get to our main event. And you touched on the fact that you watched the first time these two guys fight. It was one of the top fights in 2018. and Poirier ends up getting the win. But he's talked about it since, how bothered he was by those leg kicks. And I know I went over it at the start of the week, and I threw out the numbers. It was 174 significant strikes for Poirier to 115 of Justin Gaethje. But 115 for Gaethje. Out of those 115 for Gaethje, 50 of them were leg kicks, and he severely compromised the lead leg of Poirier. But you watch the resolve of Poirier, you look at the body work that he was doing throughout the first 3 rounds into the fourth. He had the eye poke from Gaethje that starts out the 4th round. He loses a point. Then Poirier lands an eye poke of his own. We get back to the action. Poirier gets the win. 59% of you here in the chat going with Poirier to get the win in this fight. But for me, I look at it as Poirier just a little bit more well-rounded. And if you go into just singular striking matches, you saw Justin Gaethje singularly strike with one of the best strikers on the planet at 155 pounds in Rafael Fiziev, and he gets it done. Majority decision win, but you look at what Gaethje was able to do against Fiziev. How can he not do it against Poirier and move it forward? I mean, Gaethje's one of those guys that just continues to get it done. He evolves bit by bit in some of these fights. He pulls the wildness together a little bit better, and he's able to get it done. Now, MMA Millionaire saying, don't know why, but I like Justin. Dan Margona saying, I like Poirier's schedule better. Off since November. Gaethje had a tough one in March. That one is true. AK saying Poirier jinxed himself by wearing the BMF belt. We also have Branch Above. Gaethje by TKO. I think elevation plus leg kicks leads to a late finish. Bartholomew of Haywood. These two really are legends. It's going to be a 5-round war. These two guys are, and it's crazy.